Welcome to Gaia's Love, a podcast of brief messages to help humanity bridge the gap to the new earth. My name is Vivienne Gerard. It is my delight to be a scribe for consciousness today, sharing the wisdom that flows through from Source. Here we go. Episode 112. It is Tuesday today, Tuesday afternoon for me. I spent this morning really pausing and looking, feeling into this new year and all that I want to create. And so it is late afternoon as I record this. The sun is shining full force into my room where I do all my recordings, and there is this beautiful wind that is whipping through Cincinnati. It's a really warm day here in January. Bright blue skies, lots of wind, and this gorgeous sunshine. So I arrive invigorated, very excited, full of energy after taking some time to pause and reflect and create and set intentions. It's so funny because many people do this, either on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, and it took me until today to be ready to create that time and space for myself. So if you have not yet done that at the beginning of the year, I encourage you to just create a cocoon of time, put it on your calendar, and get really still and quiet, and then tune into what's possible this year. There is so much magic and mojo available, and it takes focus for us to harness that and then apply it into the work we each do here in our lives. And of course, the topic I was studying, one of the topics was leadership, and really a definition of what I was claiming yesterday on the Fire of Time podcast episode. We have so many definitions of how we can be leaders, and what I love the most is when leadership comes from love, not from fear or domination or control, but from this inclusive, empowering love. So, of course, I found the best definition possible in the Gene Keys. If you are new to this podcast, the Gene Keys is one of my reference guides that I go to often, written by Richard Rudd. It is also available digitally or in a map format on his website, www.genekeys.com. And it combines astrology with spirituality and arts and entertainment and science and technology and everything into this immensely beautiful and powerful workbook that took me about a year to get through the first time I read it. When I looked up leadership today in the Gene Keys, no surprise, I found out it was number 31, and it is on my map of the Gene Keys that are most relevant in my path in this lifetime. So, of course, the whole chapter is underlined and starred and all kinds of notes in it. I'm going to read about the shadow and the gift. In the Gene Keys, Richard Rudd describes how most of us function from the shadow state of fear in all of these different areas and topics and vibrations of word. As we heal and evolve and connect more firmly and deeply in with our soul and the purpose with which we're here in this lifetime, we move from fear, from shadow, into love, which is the gift of each of the Gene Keys. And so the shadow in the 31st Gene Key is arrogance. The gift in the 31st Gene Key is leadership. So I'm going to read just those two sections, which is about 3 or 4 pages. Enjoy. Here we go. 31st Gene Key from Richard Rudd. Of course, the title is Sounding Your Truth. Okay, and the physiology is the throat. No kidding, right? All right, 31st shadow, arrogance. The World Wide Web of Words. This 31st shadow and its various frequency bands really turn some fundamental human concepts upside down. You may note that these bands track all human evolution as it moves from a state of arrogance to a state of humility. The chances are that you, like the rest of humanity, have been conditioned to think of arrogance and humility in a certain way. The general conditioning says that arrogance is a negative trait and that humility is a positive trait. Since this 31st gift directly concerns leadership and influence, we are going to have to explore the real definitions of these two words, because the 31st gift of leadership sits like the fulcrum of a seesaw between the two of them. I guess I should have added, the shadow is arrogance, the mastery of this gene key is humility. In the middle is the gift, which is leadership. Okay, back to his words. As one side of a binary genetic codon known as the ring of no return, the 31st gene key is chemically bonded to the 62nd gene key. They both code for an amino acid in the body known as tyrosine. This genetic coupling is very interesting when we explore it a little further. The 62nd shadow is the shadow of intellect and concerns the mental skill of manipulating language in order to try to understand our environment. In effect, this shadow encases you inside a world of language and words from an early age, projecting a mental neuro-linguistic map onto reality as you perceive it. It is because of the 62nd shadow that when you look at a tree, the word tree unconsciously forms in your mind. The 31st shadow extends this cognitive ability beyond the simple creation of a neurological map of reality. It uses this skill in order to control and manipulate others. The nice word we have for this is leadership. Because of the chemical bridge between these two shadows, humanity comes pre-programmed to follow those who can best manipulate language, facts, and words. In terms of leadership, we human beings operate very differently from animals. Animals choose their leaders instinctively, based upon one animal having an alpha gene, which marks it as the leader. In humans, the alpha gene is present in the one who can best manipulate others through language. Such people may or may not have a strong moralistic character. That is immaterial. What is important here is that language is the medium through which human leadership is manifested. Furthermore, because language is the means through which frequency can be conveyed, at higher levels of frequency, it can never lie. However, at the shadow frequency, language is the ultimate programming tool and can be used, for example, to blind an entire race of people to the truth, thereby locking them at a certain level of frequency. If we extend this concept of language as a programming tool even wider, we might say it is language that controls us, rather than we who control it. There is a big difference between leadership and authority. Authority, the gift of the 21st gene key, is based upon the control of power through strength of will. These are people who do not lead through words, but whose sheer presence controls the will of others. In the case of the 31st shadow, words can have a far deeper effect than presence, since words endure forever. Concepts spoken thousands of years ago can still influence the whole inner reality of entire nations and peoples. We see this most clearly through the great religions. It is incredible to contemplate how even a single misplaced or mistranslated word spoken by a particular person can lead to the deaths of millions of people over thousands of years. That is the power of the 31st shadow at work. Why then is the 31st shadow called the shadow of arrogance, if it is language that really controls humans rather than the other way around? The reason is that the collective shadow frequency itself is arrogant. Human arrogance is rooted in the belief that we have any independent control over reality at all. We shall see when we come to the gift frequency that the real leaders among human beings are those who understand how deeply programmed and limited we are by our own intellect. At the shadow frequency, human beings are completely convinced by the mass programming of society in which they live and its collective history, beliefs, and culture. It is always the frequency that creates the language patterns. rather than the other way around. Our arrogance is based upon our belief that we can think, talk, or act our way out of the shadow frequencies, when in fact, those very frequencies are created through our intellect. The real arrogance comes from being cut off from our divine source. Words that are not rooted in a profound sense of wonder are always at some level arrogant. Only the human heart can truly offer an answer to the mystery of existence. And unless your words carry the perfume of love somewhere behind them, they are still waiting around in the shadow frequency. At the shadow frequency, humans think, speak, and act as if they were separate from nature, rather than being an organ of it. Nature controls human beings. Nature has evolved our intellect. And nature has ensnared us in our false mental reality, because that is where nature wants us to be at our current stage in evolution. Nature has even made us arrogant in believing that we have some control over nature. These truths may well seem difficult to us human beings with our deep mental investment in individual freedom. As we shall see, true humility has no basis whatsoever in behavior, but in understanding. You can only ever be free when you have escaped language, when you are no longer a victim of your own mental constructs and words. When the heart finally begins to speak, it organizes the words without you having to think about their meaning. The high frequency of the heart is what conveys the true meaning. The ring of no return describes a state of consciousness that lies far beyond words, even though it may use words as a means of vibrational communication. Arrogance, then, is a kind of addiction to words and language, rather than the frequency of the intention that hides between and behind the words. The modern world we see around us is nothing more than a mental construct created out of billions and billions of words. At the shadow frequency, we are trapped in this worldwide web of words. Matter itself may well feel solid to our touch, but we now know it to be ephemeral. It's a hard word to say. The news headlines may seem to be deeply important, but even they are simply the working out of an evolutionary scheme of which humanity is but one small component. The 31st shadow, therefore, has drawn human beings so deeply into their own illusion or Maya that we cannot see how little influence we really have. Our new obsession with the environment and with trying to slow down our inexorable progress may well turn out to be unfounded. Our arrogance persists in assuming that we are affecting our environment, instead of seeing that there is no distinction between the environment and us. Perhaps the environment needs us to mutate it so that it can mutate us. Perhaps nature is forcing us in the direction we are going because she has an idea that we have not yet glimpsed. Whenever a human being speaks without understanding the false mental fabrication in which they live, they speak from the 31st shadow. The Maya is only interested in strengthening itself through our thoughts and words. Rare indeed are words which come from a person who understands how false words themselves are. The programming partner of the 31st shadow is the 41st shadow of fantasy, and perhaps that is the word that really says it all. All words, opinions, and thoughts with which you identify are agents of the great illusion of your separate existence. So we move to the 31st gift of leadership. Here's what Richard Rudd has to say. He titles it, Heart Branding. The gift of leadership is really a gift of influence, rather than an inherent predisposition to be a leader per se. The real leaders in the 64 gift matrix are the people with a strong activation of the 7th gift of guidance at a genetic level. The 31st gift is known as the gift of leadership only because that is the projection of the collective upon this gene key. Deep inside such a person, there is little or no inclination to be a leader, and even less identification with feeling like a leader. It is, however, this very reluctance that sets such people up as leaders. The mass consciousness, as we have seen, is programmed to be led, but has no idea of how to pick a leader. Most of the time, the mass consciousness will choose leaders not for their policies or beliefs, but for their style. The 31st gift knows all about trends and patterns because it has an inherent understanding and mastery of language. These people therefore understand the openness of the collective and its need to be influenced and led. The difference between the 31st gift and the 31st shadow is that the 31st gift does not believe in its own propaganda. This gift is no longer caught up in the fear of what others think. And if you want to influence people in a certain direction, this is a distinct advantage. The modern day term for this is the spin doctor. The spin doctor spins the truth whichever way happens to suit one's audience. At the shadow frequency, this is all rooted in getting more personal recognition and or more control or wealth. At the gift level, the higher frequency has already moved the person beyond the tight, codependent dynamic of the leader and the led, or the shepherd and the sheep. At this level, you still play the game, but for a different purpose. Now your primary influence is to help others break out of the very same matrix in which you yourself were once caught. The 31st gift, like all the gifts, represents a huge step beyond the intellect and into the heart. Only the heart really perceives the collective suffering that comes from being marooned in your intellect at the shadow frequency. Thus, your natural urge is to help others escape that suffering in some way. Furthermore, since the 31st gift is the gift of understanding the masses in the language of the shadow frequency, it naturally uses this gift to help draw others out of the codependent victim patterns and relationships of the lower frequencies. The 31st gift still carries an agenda, but that agenda is to help people out of the narrow neuro-linguistic confines of their own conditioning. Let me say that one again. The 31st gift still carries an agenda, but that agenda is to help people out of the narrow neuro-linguistic confines of their own conditioning. No one understands the specifics of conditioning quite like the 31st gift. The 62nd gift of precision, which we have seen is chemically linked to this gift, allows a person operating at this frequency to use very specific programming words and languages to deprogram other people's conditioning. Because the 31st gift has its finger on the pulse of the collective patterns of humanity, it can have enormous influence over large numbers of people. An artist or writer expressing him or herself through this gift can create a work of art whose influence far outweighs its content. In our modern world, we can see how the specific release of a particular book or film at a particular time can have a vast impact on the whole planetary consciousness. In our modern communication-rich global culture, the 31st gift is really opening up more and more to its true potential. Certain human beings operating out of the 31st gift can literally become the voice of the collective. At the shadow frequency, they become the voice of our fear, whereas at the gift level, they become the voice of our creativity, as well as the messengers of our future evolution. Along with its programming partner, the 41st gift of anticipation, the 31st gift naturally has an affinity with the future and is always expressing the cutting edge of consciousness in form. The secret to the 31st gift is the secret of branding. These are people who inherently know that the medium they use, whether it be music, art, science, literature, or simply the naked human voice, is really the only means of expressing a transmission that lies beyond words. The art itself carries the frequency encoded within it, but the frequency lies well beyond the words, colors, or tones themselves. In other words, all human expression is really nothing but branding. If you release the right brand at the right time in history, you will have a huge influence. This is why the 31st gift is founded upon the rock of anticipation. It always has to sense what is coming into the world next. And to do this, it has to be free from the old conditioning. It truly is the heart that separates the shadow frequencies from the gift frequencies. And in our current stage of evolution, The heart is the hottest frequency there is. If you want to really see the nature of success on the material plane, then the heart represents the cutting edge today. From the level of the heart, success is now reaching for a new definition. Life is no longer about individual success, but success as a collective organism. This is the direction in which evolution is currently taking us. One can therefore see from the 31st gift that a new era is opening up before humanity. And it is an era in which individual leadership is declining, while something we have never seen before is also occurring. The collective is beginning to lead itself. Those frequencies that really catch the heart of the collective are coming through as collective voices and expressions, even though they are transmitted by individuals. The point is that those individuals have little or no self-interest. It is truly an extraordinary age that we are moving towards, and it is only those ready to make the leap into the heart who will inherit the huge benefits coming to us all. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you to Richard Rudd for his beautiful leadership and guidance through these words. Okay. Thank you for tuning in to today's vibration. Let's take this message of pure love out into all of our communities and continue expanding love here on Gaia. So much love from my heart to yours.